For more content like this, log on to gibbopresents.com.
It's Gibbo, and right now I'm joined by a true pioneer. The director of programming for reggae and gospel at SiriusXM satellite radio. It is Pat McKay. Pat, how are you?
I'm good. Thanks for that kind introduction.
You've been involved in the radio business for many years, since your first show on college radio in the early 80s. Can you tell me the story of how this opportunity came about?
This opportunity here at SiriusXM?
No, your first opportunity on college radio.
Wow. I lived in a dorm called the Third World Dorm at Oberlin College. And no, it wasn't named after the band, but more students from developing countries or had a sensibility of those countries. So it was a very diverse dorm. I lived with people from all over the world, and many of us had record collections, but I had probably the most obnoxious sound system, speakers and stereo and turntable and lots of records. So really my fellow students, especially the Latino students, were insistent that I begin to do a radio show there. So the radio show turned into DJing in the college club, and it's just bringing back memories. If I'm stuttering, it's because it's not only is it long ago, but it was a really good time. And I started doing college radio, then came back to New York, and eventually began to do commercial radio.
You're very eloquent, and I feel your style of presentation is unlike anyone else's within the reggae radio world. Did you make a conscious effort to differentiate yourself in this way? Were there any presenters that influenced you or who you admired early on in your career?
Well, early in life, listening to radio here in New York, the best. From Bruce Morrow, Cousin Brucey, to Chuck Leonard and Al Lundy. I was very into pop music at the time, and my babysitter was an older cousin who was very into pop music as well. So it was a lot of James Brown to Frankie Valli, early pop music. And the style of presentation on the radio was just inclusive. It didn't really make a big deal about specific differences. You were just listening to one thing and then you were listening to another, and it had different sounds, but it was just all good music. And it was all, at that time, radio wasn't so categorized, so you could hear, James Taylor with James Brown, and I really did enjoy that.
You've worked at many stations over the years, occupying different positions. Can you talk me through your radio timeline, if you like, from after college radio to the present day?
Sure. I did a local station with limited license, almost the equivalent of a British pirate station. The frequency was just a certain part of Brooklyn. And that was my first commercial radio experience. But the good thing about that was where I was geographically was the center of reggae record sales at the time. And also artists were beginning to become more independent, and they would often bring their own records or just hang out in the record shops, because they were also, bastions of the Caribbean community. The people that owned those shops were actually community leaders in their own way, so their shops became central places. So I got new music first, and a lot of it. So as a music lover, I was very, very inspired by the location of that show. Though it was small, we were eventually taken to court by a larger station that was right next door. And in fact, there's no such thing as that type of low frequency station in New York State anymore. That's how mad they were. And that's how good we were. So that was my first real commercial radio experience. And then from there, I was interviewed at WLIB, but they didn't hire me. The FM station hired me, their sister station. And I stayed at WBLS for a while, but I'm missing something. There's also Upstate Radio here in New York. the same program director who actually gave me my first job in reggae, which wasn't on the radio, it was to be an MC. He did the only reggae club in New York. So all the live reggae was at that club, and I eventually became the MC. And he wouldn't put me on the radio. I had to kind of earn that. It took a while, but he moved to upstate New York a bit, to New Rochelle, and that's station, I can't even remember the call letters, but I was on that station upstate for quite a while doing overnights, or what they call a graveyard shift, for a while. But it allowed me to play slightly more illicit music, and, you know, like Shabba's Wicked in Bed was considered so, you know, illicit.
Taboo.
And very taboo. But I could play it at that hour. So there were other songs like that, sort of a point in the late 80s, early 90s. I did that. And then from there went to WBLS with Bobby Konders. And, you know, great memories, both places, because I then went back to that upstate station to do the first regular simulcast between New York and Jamaica. And that's probably the most emotional response that I've ever gotten in all the time I've been on the radio, because people were able to talk to Jamaica. We would do a clash at the end of that show for the last 15 minutes every week. You know, we'd pick two artists or a theme, whether it was Bounty or Mbini, or if it was Valentine's Day, we'd throw love songs at each other. And that feature got very popular. Also, it gave people the ability to shout out their family in both places. So it was an honor to work with Irie Jam. That show, very strong and doing all kinds of outreach and things that have grown from that radio show. So from WBLS, I then went to KISS FM here in New York, and then from there came to SiriusXM.
I believe your show on WBLS, the Reggae House Party, was the first all-reggae commercial radio show in America?
Yes, it was. On a major market station. There were other reggae radio shows, but not on a bandwidth that hefty.
Was this something that you had to lobby and fight for a long time?
Absolutely not. It was business. There was a competing show that played Caribbean music, but it kind of apologized for reggae in that it included everything else, every other kind of music, including reggae. So, and, you know, that was the background of that host. He brought that to that station. That was David Levy. And our station wanted to compete with that. But between Bobby Konders and myself, we didn't feel like we needed to include music that's always been included. So we did a reggae show. It was actually, Bobby was a mixer, and that show was, they asked me to just be the host. But there's no way I could have done it without including Bobby at the level that I did. He's amazing.
Having accomplished a lot as an on-air personality, you took on board programming duties first at Music Choice and then today at Sirius. Can you talk to me about the transition into that role?
Before Music Choice, there was WLIB. I actually became the acting PD there for a while. It was a whole group of men. And the then general manager of the station, when the position became open, which was a whole nother story, because they fired a man that had not only that position, but a time slot for 13 years. And I got his time slot and then eventually his responsibility. So I was not the most loved girl in that group, and I was the only girl there. And the general manager said something completely illegal, which is that I would give you the job, but the guys would kill you and me. He's later said it's one of his 3 worst business decisions in his whole entire life. And I get it, but it never stopped me. I just went ahead and did my job, and it's one of 2 times that station's ever been in the top 10 in the New York market. I'm very proud of that, because the last person that did it before me, and the only other person that ever did it, is the person that gave me my first job, Ken Williams. So it took 10 years later, and then we were back in top 10 in this area. But I was acting PD for the time that I was there. It afforded me the responsibility of programming, you know, important time slots in the #1 market in North America. And, you have to get to know your audience. It was a very responsive audience. The Caribbean community in the New York tri-state area, I think, is one of the largest, if not the largest, in North America. And they were very responsive to me, so I felt I had to be responsive to them. And it was the basis of me understanding how important it is to know your audience, really.
Can you outline your duties today as program director for The Joint and Kirk Franklin's Praise? Perhaps describe a typical workday.
The responsibility is the word I would use, because there are two communities, two industries really, that I have to be responsible to, as well as my employers. So there's a national audience of people that pay for a service. There are the people that work above me that direct some basic things about what it is that we do and program. The two stations that I direct are two of over 60. So the identity of each of the stations that I program is very important. They have to be clearly established, because if you're paying for something and you get to it, you want what you paid for, and you need it to be the best. So our audience is national. We're in 4 different time zones just in North America, but we're also available on the internet. So my responsibilities are endless, as are all my coworkers that work at the same level doing other stations. You're always on the air. It's not like you just can sign off. It never signs off. So it's a big responsibility, a big honor, though.
SiriusXM is unique in the ways you just mentioned, but also provides a huge variety of content, freedom, and a different style of broadcasting. In an age when radio has to compete with more other platforms than ever before for people's attention, do you believe this is the formula that will allow radio to be an effective medium for years to come?
I so do. I believe in the importance of our company, because I see its influence on all the important charts. I see how we affect the amount of butts in concert seats. I see how artists get to spread the word about their new music first with us. Because we're commercial free, we don't have those 18 minutes every hour that commercial radio has. So with that time, we get to really celebrate artists. It's an artist-friendly forum, and artists have embraced us, and we're very grateful for that. But we also embrace and support them. If they're doing something, they're allowed space for whatever they're doing that's important.
Do you feel you have opened doors? Will it be easier for the next talented female to rise through the reggae radio ranks?
God, I hope so. I hope people are over, gender and anything that makes us different as humans, and we get to just celebrate what we share, just as humans. So it's as big a deal as you make of it, and I think with time, though, it's become exceptional that I've been allowed to do what I do, considering that reggae is 99.9% male, but gospel's a lot more inclusive than reggae already. Hallelujah.
Pat, thanks so much for taking time to chat. It's been a real pleasure.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Gibbo presents